Hello everyone, Jeff the Green Review. At some point in the year, the conditions will be proper for diseases to infect plants. As part of the plant disease diagnosis, we need to determine if infection is continuing or if it's over. The proper time for control treatments of many diseases is long before symptoms are noticed. Once the disease is diagnosed, plans need to be made for treatments before the next infectious period. Let's talk about a couple of common bacterial diseases first. Fire blight is a bacterial disease of rose family plants, including almonds, apples, crabapples, cotoneaster, peaches, pears, photinia, plums, pyracantha, raspberry, roses, serviceberry, spirea, mountain ash, quince, and many others. The bacteria are transported from the infected plant flowers to the flowers on new plants by honeybees and other insects. The bacteria spread down inside the branch before forming a canker, which is a shrunken, discolored dead area on the stem. Rain can splash the bacteria out of the canker to new infection sites. An infected branch will often have the last 6 inches to a foot curl over in a shepherd's hook shape and turn black as though scorched by fire. Pruning at the proper time and antibiotic treatments may be necessary. It is potentially fatal to infected plants. Wetwood, or slime flux, is a bacterial disease common in elms, maples, and other trees. Smelly liquid runs down the outside of infected trees as it bubbles out of the tree. When it dries in the bark, it leaves white stains. It often occurs where two trunks are rubbing together and the bark in between them is decaying because dead stuff decays. It can also be seen running down the trunk from wounds created by removing a limb. There are a lot of fungal diseases that affect plants. Anthracnose is a disease caused by a group of fungi infecting plant leaves. It is not often fatal. The fungi cause small dead spots that enlarge to block-shaped dead areas. Young leaves often fall off. In cool, moist spring weather conditions, anthracnose on sycamore trees can kill buds and 1-year-old stems. As the weather dries out, the sycamore will send out new growth. If repeatedly infected year after year, the tree may develop a witch's broom of twigs at the end of the branch. The fungus stays in the buds and in cankers on the stems over the winter. Apple scab is the most common of several scab diseases. It's a very serious disease of commercially grown apples. It is common on older varieties of crabapples, but many newer varieties are resistant. Don't buy a crabapple that's not listed as resistant. The leaves and fruit are infected early in the spring, long before most people realize the tree is infected. The infected leaves fall off all summer long. Susceptible trees can be sprayed with a fungicide every week in the spring, from the time the buds begin to sprout until the weather turns dry. Black knot is a fungal canker of cherries and plums. The cankers enlarge to become large black galls that kill the branch over 2 years. Whole trees die when the trunk is girdled. Fungicide sprays can help stop new infections, but do not cure the old infections. Black spot on roses is a fungal disease that infects leaves during moist, humid spring weather. Many new rose hybrids are resistant. Botrytis fungus mostly attacks flowers and fruit. It's seen as a gray mold growing on begonia, grapes, peonies, strawberries, and vegetable crops. It kills peony flower buds. Clean up plant debris to help prevent reinfection the following year, and spray early as buds are coming out. Cankers are open wounds that become infected. Many factors can lead to a crack on a branch, stem, or trunk. Freeze damage, mechanical wounds, too much sun, insect damage, and too much or not enough water can all lead to cracks. If the open wound becomes infected, it's called a canker. The area around the infection site often shrinks and may look like a raisin compared to the normal plumpness of the surrounding bark. It may change color to black or red. Some bacterial and fungal diseases create cankers to spread spores. Some cankers remain open wounds for years, letting the fungus spread spores. The plant will try to wall off the area with gums, resins, and by letting tissue around the wound die. The plant will try to grow past the wound site with callus tissue. No chemical controls treat cankers. Cytospora canker is the most common disease of spruce and landscapes because the trees are often not watered enough or have other wounds inflicted upon them. Resin flows from the cankers and develops a white crust. Individual branches die one at a time, but sometimes the trunk is girdled and the tree dies above that point. It affects spruce older than about 10 to 15 years and trees that are affected by dry weather. Diplodia Tip Blight is a disease of pine trees. It infects needles on the lower branches of the tree first. Eventually it infects the branches and the tree dies. Fungicides are only useful if the treatments start before the branches are infected. Dutch elm disease is one of the most destructive diseases in North America. American elms have been virtually eliminated. The fungus is spread by elm bark beetles that prefer large trees. The large trees all die and are removed. Small elm trees grow in fence rows and unkept areas and eventually grow large. The beetles come back bringing the fungus and they kill the large trees again. Some new elm hybrid varieties are more resistant. Leaf spot fungi are found on practically every plant, but are not fatal. The circular center of the infection will be dead, surrounded by dying tissue, surrounded by sick tissue, causing a bullseye kind of effect. Lots of spots next to each other may develop into other shapes. Annuals, perennials, and vegetables are more likely to be killed than shrubs and trees. Leaves should be picked up when a tree sheds them in large quantities to reduce the amount of available spores available for reinfection. Needlecast fungi are similar to leaf spot fungi but found on evergreens and more likely to be deadly. Discolored needles are seen on lower branches in the summer. By fall, the needles may be orange. Branches die one by one as it moves up the tree. Normal blue and green spruce needles are in the first picture here, and infected needles are in the second picture. Oak wilt can quickly kill oaks in the red oak group and slowly kill oaks in the white oak group. Red oaks often die within a month of the first symptoms, while white oaks take several years to die. Beetles and root grafts spread the disease, and there is no control. Powdery mildew makes a plant look like it's covered in frost or snow. It is unsightly and can be fatal as it weakens a plant and blocks light to the leaf. It's most common on shady, cool locations. Plant breeders have been coming up with newer genetically modified varieties of mildew-resistant plants. For instance, if you have a phlox with mildew, try getting one of the newer resistant ones. Here's a picture of monarda with powdery mildew on the leaves, and the phlox with the mildew on the left, and mildew-resistant phlox on the right. Both are growing in the same conditions in the same garden. Root rot can be caused by many fungi. You'll often hear about Fusarium, Phytophthora, Pythium, and Rhizoctonia. These are especially a problem on small plants like seedlings growing indoors and in perennial and vegetable gardens. Roots often become infected when there's too much water in the soil. Once the roots begin to die, the whole plant wilts. Rust fungi attack lawns, perennials, shrubs, and trees. When it's found on lawns, it can cause the entire area to become orange. Walking on the lawn can get the orange spores on shoes and lawnmowers. It usually doesn't kill lawns, and if they're fertilized and watered, the grass can outgrow the fungus. Several of the 4,000 species of rust have an interesting life cycle. During one life stage, they're found on rose family trees and shrubs such as apple, crabapple, hawthorn, and quince. During the next stage of the growth, they infect juniper species. The disease alternates between host plants during the same year. Landscapes with a combination of both hosts may require more maintenance to prevent problems. The rust disease is not usually fatal on either host, but can be very unsightly on both. They're named for the host that they infect. For example, one is called cedar apple rust. Here's a picture of rust on grass. The orange marmalade octopus is the cedar apple rust on a juniper. The woody ball is last year's rust remains. Cedar hawthorn rust on a hawthorn, and cedar apple rust on a serviceberry fruit. Rust disease on an aster leaf. Rust can also cause damage on daylilies and many other perennials. Sooty mold is a fungus that grows on many surfaces, including plant leaves covered with honeydew excreted by insects like aphids, scale, or mealybugs. The black fungus can block the light that the leaf needs, causing the plant to shed the leaves. It'll often wash off, but the real problem of sucking insects needs to be addressed. Peony measles causes small red spots on leaves before the plant blooms. Over the summer, the spots become large, killing a lot of the leaf. Remove the infected leaves before they collapse to the ground and become hard to find. If there are a lot of dead leaves lying on the mulch, remove some of it and replace it in the fall. Verticillium fungal infections are often hard to diagnose, as the plants often exhibit the same symptoms of stress from lack of water or too hot of a summer. The fungus can get into the plant in many ways, including damage to the roots. The fungus and the plant's reaction to it plug the xylem tissue. Above that point on a branch or trunk, the plant dies. Some trees recover and show no symptoms for a year or two until another branch dies. A tree that has branches showing fall color a month or more ahead of normal while the rest of the tree is still green is often showing a symptom of Verticillium wilt. This symptom is called flagging. Many plants can become infected with verticillium, including garden vegetables and strawberries. The fungus is found in soil and remains in place for years, so replacement of a plant suspected to have verticillium should be with a resistant plant One symptom that indicates infection is discolored streaks in the xylem tissue. So you have to take a knife and scrape to there and see if you can find it. Vinca Minor is a common ground cover. When overwatered, even by rain, it can get two different fungal diseases. The stems and leaves turn brown or black, and large areas of the plants can die quickly. Some slime molds look like dog vomit lying in the bark mulch. They can actually move across the landscape like a giant amoeba. They decay organic matter and do no harm to plants. They just look disgusting. After growing for a while, they go to the spore stage. It dries up and looks like a piece of dried up styrofoam. The one in this picture is mostly dried up and releasing spores. If you don't like the look, just toss a shovel full of mulch on top. Let's talk about virus diseases. Rose rosette disease may be caused by a virus or phytoplasma that's spread by a very small, Europhyid mite. The good news is that the main host is the multiflora rose, which is considered a noxious weed throughout much of the United States. The bad news is that it can infest garden roses. The disease causes the plants to grow numerous branches with extremely short internodes, lots of thorns, and tiny leaves, all deformed at the end of the branch. The whole group may be bright red. The whole plant typically dies within a year. Notice the distorted leaves on the rose on the right next to the undistorted rose leaves on the left. Remove any infected plants as soon as they're noticed. Hosta Virus X, HVX, is a recent but widespread problem in hostas. The sap of an infected hosta plant getting on another hosta will spread the disease. The leaves will be distorted and discolored. This one on the left is infected. There's no cure other than disposal of the plant. And this is Jeff with a Green Review. Thanks for watching.